Alright, welcome to day 3 of your photography lesson. And in today's lesson, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do a photography shoot. We're going to take some portraits. I'm going to take some self-portraits, and what I'm going to do is show you how I set things up, what I'm thinking when I'm photographing, and kind of show you a few behind the scenes of how a portrait shoot goes. So I'm also going to be switching cameras because I actually need the camera that's recording this to be used as part of it. So I'm going to use another camera to show you the behind the scenes and kind of talk you through the whole entire process. And then also what we're going to do after the photography shoot is I'm going to show you my workflow on how I edit photos, why it's important to edit photos, and we'll talk it through. So that's what we're going to cover in today's lesson. So let's get started. All right, so I'm recording this part of our lesson on my iPhone, and I just wanted to show some of the versatility in which some of our digital equipment can be used to show behind the scenes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clear the room, because as you can see in recording this course, there's the camera, there's the light I'm using. I do need to clear a little bit of space because right now it's a little tight. And so I'm going to clear some space and I will show you what the setup is, and then I will check in with you then again. All right. All right, so I just set everything up. As you can see now, an umbrella with a flash is attached to that. Camera is now on a tripod. Let me walk you through. Okay, so we're looking at the camera. Right, so I am using a 24-70, and that's the thing I've been using to film all of your photo lessons so far. Attached to the 5D Mark IV, this is the 5D Mark IV. It's an upgrade from the other camera I showed you on. I attached a wireless controller to control, that flash right there. And so what that's going to allow me to do, it gives me, just like you can see, there is no wires between the camera and the flash. And so that's going to help me, work and be mobile with everything. So yeah, so now what we're going to do is we're going to prepare to shoot. I do a thing for myself, a personal project called Tie Tuesday and Bow Tie Thursday. And today is Bow Tie Thursday, so what we're going to do is I'm going to put on a bow tie, and then we'll talk about some of the setup for the next set of how the portrait's going to work. All right, cool. All right, so I have the bow tie on, as you can see. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up my camera so I can start taking some portraits. So what I'm going to do is take some test shots with some settings and try it out, and I will tell you the settings once I get it, but I'll try to talk you through to what I'm doing behind here when I'm looking at the camera. And also one thing to notice is I moved the umbrella from that used to be here to here because of the particular style that I'm looking for in today's portrait. But as things evolve, we can see how it's going to change. So I might move it back, but that's the fun thing about photo shoots. You're trying to figure things out. Usually on a actual shoot, I'm going to try to do all of this before the client gets to me. So therefore, when the client gets to me, we can just immediately do the photography shoots, and they don't have to wait around while I set up. So let me see what I can do right now. All right. Okay, so what I am doing right now is I'm looking through the viewfinder to make sure the composition, like the stuff I talked about in the first day, is looking right. So I am looking and I'm liking it. So right now, make sure the camera's on also, and make sure it's not on video. What I'm going to be doing now is I'm setting my focus point. So I'm going to set this to autofocus, so therefore it's going to focus itself when I stand in front of it, and it looks like it's good. All right, so what I have right now for my settings is ISO 100, f2.8, that's my aperture, and right now my shutter speed's at 50, 1/50th of a second. What I'm also going to grab right now is going to grab a remote. I was talking about accessories yesterday, and one of the things for me to trigger my camera when I'm standing in front of it is a remote, so I'm going to use that right now, or I'm going to grab it right now so you can kind of see. So yeah. Okay, grab the remote, plug it into the camera. Okay, and to get it in, okay, plugged in. I'm going to stand out here, take a test shot and see what it looks like. It looks like the flash turned off, so you have to turn it back on. Oh, and the flash setting, before I forget to mention, the flash setting is also on 1/64th power of the flash. And one thing to disclose right now is I'm going to be talking photography not in the most technical of terms, but I'm going to try to talk to you through a way that I understand, and hopefully you'll understand. And if you do have questions, there will be some time for you to ask me some questions about the stuff that we're doing today. So I set this off at 1/64th of the full power of the flash, and the camera settings are there. I'm gonna stand right here, take a test shot, and I'm gonna try to pose and smile. All right, I took a shot. There's a few settings that I'm realizing that I need to fix on the camera. There's something called the mirror lockup that's on there, and that's beyond the scope of this course, but basically it requires me to push the shutter button twice. So I'm gonna go look at the photograph. Okay, it's looking a little dark right now. So I'm going to adjust the settings a little bit more. So what I'm gonna do is change it to, I'm actually gonna make my shutter speed a lot quicker. So I'm gonna go 200ths of a second. I'm gonna keep it at 2.8, and my ISO is still at 100. But what I'm also gonna do now is I'm gonna power up the flash to a little bit more. So we're gonna go 1/16th of its full power, and I'm gonna go ahead and stand in front of the camera again and take another test shot and see how that goes. Okay, pose, smile. All right, so took that shot. I still need to turn off that mirror lockup. Let's just see what I got. All right, it's looking good. It's not the best right now. It's also looking blue because I didn't change my white balance, and that's something that we're gonna talk about soon as well when we're in the editing process. That's another core thing to understand in photography. Let's change the white balance. So I'm gonna change this to a flash setting. And I'm also gonna now, since I'm here, I'm gonna turn off mirror lockup. Mirror lockup's now off. Cool. Okay. And that is set. That is there. Okay. I'm gonna try one more time and see if I like that setting. I'm always gonna try to stand at the exact same spot when I'm photographing. All right. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, it's getting there. We're not there yet, but we're almost there. So turn off that mirror lockup. It's okay. I'm gonna actually lower my shutter speed so I get a little bit more ambient light. And I'm gonna put that there. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more. And okay, so I'm gonna try that one more time. And as you can see, it's a lot of setup when I'm doing self-portraits, but if I was doing with the clients, I have this already set up, and it's just gonna be as easy as I need you to stand here, and we start photographing away. I'm gonna smile. All right, cool. Let's see what this one looks like. All right, it's not bad. What I might wanna do now is I'm going to increase it one more time. I'm going to go to 1/8 power versus 1/16th. And just so therefore, and then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to move this umbrella a little bit closer, just so it lights my face up a little bit more. I'm going to smile, pose. All right, so let's see what that looks like. All right, I'm liking it a lot more than what we originally started off with. So, all right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take a couple more portraits, and then we will talk about the workflow setup. So as you can see, I have the camera set up here, an umbrella, and then the mark for where you or the model stands is right in front of there. And as you can see, you can make this happen in any size room. all the stuff I'm talking about right now can apply outside when you do an outside portrait, or even if you're in a studio. But this is a small setup, which I'm assuming a lot of us are, because there's a huge stay-at-home order for all the things that are going on. So that is basically what I'm going to do. So I'm going to let this run, and I'll speed this part up so you can kind of see what it is. Oh, the one other thing I want to note to you is the reason why I set up this remote, because it is an intervalometer, so it actually has the ability to allow the camera to take pictures. So currently I have this set up to take a picture every 3 seconds, and it's just gonna take some pictures, and it gives me the ability to change my pose, smile, and get a few different looks and styles in without walking back and forth. So it's just a time saver for me. And it's what most people would call a photo hack, and this is a great way to do it. So yeah, just watch me take a couple of shots. All right, so I'm gonna take more shots. Okay, that's gonna work. Cool, take that off. Okay, start timer. Okay, turn that off. I'm gonna look at the camera and see if I'm liking what I'm seeing. Cool. Awesome. Looks like I got the shots that I'm looking for. So, all right. So basically now we finished the portrait shoots. Usually these things take a little bit longer, but because of this particular lesson, we're gonna make it a little bit shorter. But now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna break this down and then get a setup to show you what I do for my workflow when I download and edit the photos, and then we'll also talk about editing as well. All right. Okay, so one of the first things that you're going to do is you're going to, as you can hear now, you're going to hear me put in a memory card into it. So as you put the memory card into your computer, it should pop up on your screen. So it's going to show up here, and as we navigate through these screens, you're going to start to see that there are the files that we took today. So usually they're arranged by date. I try to arrange it by the day. So these will show you today's pictures that we took. So if I push the space bar, because I am using a Mac, you can see that there are going to be some photos. There's some of the first photos I took. As we look, we're starting to see it's a little bit blue, and this is as I am going through it all. So you can see the photos have been there. So one of the first things that I do is I would use a you would use a portable hard drive, but instead, for the purposes of this, we're going to create a new folder on your desktop, and I traditionally set this up by using the date. So today's date is July 17th. Put that date in, and I'll open that folder just like you see here. And once that folder is created, I will take all of the CR2 files, which are the raw files, and these are the raw files that will give us the most flexibility. And like I said yesterday, the big difference between a raw file and JPEG file is the amount of size. As you can see here, it is about 33.7 megabytes. And what I'll do is I'll try to show you an example of why you want a raw file versus a JPEG file. Actually, what I'll do now is I will find a photo that is a JPEG and show you what I can't. Actually, we'll do it afterwards. So now the files have been downloaded. I'm going to use a program called Adobe Lightroom to edit the photos. As of right now, we're going to choose a new catalog. We're going to use choose a different catalog. We're just going to use a temporary one that is located on my hard drive. So we're going to use a temporary one. No, that is the wrong file. We're going to quit again. Okay, so now that the folder has been created, we're going to use a program called Lightroom. to do this, we're going to use a default catalog, and we don't want that. So we're going to do this one more time. So quit. What we're going to do is, okay, now that the folder has been uploaded, we're going to use a program called Adobe Lightroom to do all the editing. We're going to choose a different catalog. Just going to open this one up. So open. I'm going to turn off my Bluetooth so that mouse thing does not show up. Turn it off. Okay. All right. So as you can see, we do have some existing files here. But what we're going to do now, this is the Lightroom interface. There's a whole entire course, and you can Google search and internet search all the tutorials on this. For the purposes of this lecture or this lesson, we're not going to go into the full details of it. It's beyond the scope of this lesson, but we're going to kind of go over the basics and focus more on the photography. So once you have Lightroom open, what you're going to want to do is navigate to your library module. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the folder that we just created with all of the images. So we're going to navigate there to the desktop. There is the folder. We're going to load it up. And it's going to load all the folders. Not all the folders. It's going to load up all the photos. We're going to select them all. And we're going to import them. And as you can see, the photos are slowly getting imported into it. So let's take a look at a couple of them. So this is the first photo I took. It was just kind of like that test shot that I was talking about. This is a little bit more of still the test shots that I was testing with, and changing more of the white balance. So a little bit on that white balance that I'm talking about. See how these photos, like from the first photo to this photo to this photo, has a different like tint, or it looks a little bit more yellow, like this one is a little bit more blue. And basically this has something to do with an idea called white balance. And white balance, all it is the color temperature of light. In the room in which I took these portraits in, I have a fluorescent light, and it tends to make things a lot more yellow. And then this one tends to make it more blue because I was using the flash, and that's like the bulb inside there, the temperature of that flash is a little bit more blue. But as we go, we can kind of start seeing it's a little bit more yellow over the time. So this is one of the first photos I was happy with. So we might use this as a photo to edit. But yeah, so with white balance, as you can see, there's different settings. And since this is a raw file, we have more availability on the types of white balances that we have available. So if I select auto, it's going to look a little bit more blue. It's going to look a little bit more like how your eye sees it. If you do daylight, it's still going to be more orange. Cloudy, it might get even more warmer. Shade is even more warmer. Tungsten is a little bit more blue, so that's like a halogen light would be used for tungsten. Fluorescence also works. It's more like the lights that we're all used to. And then there's the flash setting, which is a little bit more it's a little bit more yellow in this particular setting because of the overall light in the room that I took this portrait in. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an auto and change it from there. And as you can see, it just takes photos even more and more and more, and you can play around with all these kind of things. So that's the beauty with having an intervalometer. You can take your own self-portraits and you can have fun with it as I showed you here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to edit this photo. So now we're going to go from the library module and go to the develop module. All right, so one of the first things that I like to do is, first of all, I like to examine the whole photo, see what looks good and what doesn't. There is a line here that you see that I kind of don't like, so what we're going to do is we're going to crop that in. And since this is most likely going to get posted to Instagram, I'm going to change my crop a little bit so it matches an Instagram crop. So here what you can see is I can change the crop ratio. So I traditionally for Instagram it's a 4:5 or 8:10. So I'm going to select that, and as you can see, it automatically does that. When I do compose my image, remember the rule of thirds that I talked about in the first lesson? This is also the same concept. what I traditionally like to do with portraits is I like to put the eyes right here about the third of the way and make sure I have some room on the top and do that. So once that's there, I'm happy with that composition. That line is still there, so what I might do is I might bring it in a little bit more, making sure my the line is still about where it is. There's a little bit less room there, so, and it's okay. You don't have to get it perfect right on that line. You're more than welcome to adjust it. And so just select that. All right, so I'm liking that. One of the first things I'm going to do is play with the white balance. And usually when I do white balance is I try to find something white or a gray in the image. So since my bow tie is white, I'm going to select that and see what color it comes out to. It's a little warm. And white balance is something that you can change and modify it based off your liking. I like mine a little bit more cooler than that. So we're going to keep it there for now. And one of the first things, so here's a photo editing tip of one of the first things that you want to do. I usually push auto just to kind of see what the computer is going to do to the photo. It has actually helped me edit photos a lot more quicker. So push auto, look at that. The photo already looks 100% better than what it used to. So there's a side-by-side comparison. So this is what it looked like as the original photo on the left and what this actual photo now as so far that we've done unedited looks on the right. So it's a considerably huge difference on that. So as you can see, I'm happy with this photo. I'm going to adjust some of the settings, like usually the highlights I play with. Shadows I'll bring up a little bit just to bring a little bit more of my face a little bit, brighten that up a little bit more. I'm going to add a little bit of texture, just a little bit, because see, as you can see, if I put a lot of texture, it's going to really texturize my skin and make it look really not good. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit more. And overall, it looks good. The bow tie is semi out of focus, but that's okay. You can still see the bow tie. It doesn't have to be the main focus of it. Basically, the face is where you want to be the focus. And as you can see, as I zoom in, yes, it's a little scary, but as I zoom in, you can see that the face is in focus and all that stuff. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. So what I'm going to do next, an important part of this editing process, is making sure that your photos are sharp. So there's a sharpening tool here. When you photograph in RAW, there is no processing done whatsoever to the photo. So the comparison between the before and after, this is an unprocessed photo, so there is no sharpening, there is nothing. This is how it actually looked like in the camera, and this is what it looks like after you do some editing. So again, you can kind of see the flexibility of what RAW files can do. You will be able to change a little bit more, so you can have that flexibility when editing your photos. So, and mind you, some of the cameras do not have the capability of RAW, but if you do have that capability, you do have a little bit more flexibility with everything. Basically what I'm telling you is you don't have to get it right in camera, although I'm going to say as a professional photographer, you want to strive to get it right in camera because it's going to save time on your editing. So, all right, we're going to move on. So I have sharpened it a little bit more. So what I'm going to do now is we went from the basics and then we went to sharpening. And now what I'm going to do is have some lens correction. And this is just going to fix some of that distortion that I was talking about in the lens. So as you can see, as I switch back and forth, it fixes a little bit more of that distortion and brings it to what it actually is. Basically, the program has profiles of each of the lenses and you can change and set up default for it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to keep it as a default. And so with all of that, I mean, overall, I like the way it looks now, but we're going to kind of enhance it a little bit more. And dependent on how you feel about it, you don't have to do anything extra that I'm doing now. Like, we're basically 90% there, and this photo is basically good to go. So I'm going to add a little bit of, I'm going to actually hold off on that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do some light retouching. Oh, that's a little close. Oh, that's even too close. So we're going to do some light retouching. There's a little yellow in my teeth. So what I'm going to do here, there are some filters, or there's some things that you can do and you select the area that you want, like my teeth, and what we can do is we can make that a little bit more wider. So as you can see, the teeth are a little bit more wider than they were previously, and so that's one nice little thing that you can do. The next thing, we're going to go a little bit larger. Okay, so the skin's okay, but let's just soften it up a little bit. So we're going to do the exact same thing with this adjustment brush that I just picked up. We're going to highlight that area, and we're going to start to color in all of that, and it's going to be very subtle. You're not going to notice it, but I'll show you where these were all applied, and this kind of gives you a little bit more flexibility and doing all that. So I'm going to turn on what they call the mask layer to show you where it's been applied. So it's been applied where all this red is, and you don't have to apply everything, but it's just enough. It looks like I have a really bad sunburn when I have that turned on, but it shows you where that adjustment was applied, and there it is. All right, so for this particular one, we're going to zoom in again. We're going to kind of look into my eyes. Okay, so my eyes are a little bit more, so there's nice catch light. So there's so many details in this photo that I want to talk about, but because we're on a time constraint and we have to keep this a little bit short, what you're seeing here is an important part of catch lights, because without them your eyes kind of look a little bit more dead. So having that catch light from the flash definitely helps. So what we're going to do a little bit is we're just going to enhance that a little bit. So we're going to use this adjustment brush once again, and we're going to do an iris enhancement, which is all around here. So we're going to select that, bring that in a little bit. So we're going to enhance that just slightly. Okay, and as you can see now, what we're going to do is we're going to do another exposure. So we're just going to bring that up a little bit, and we're going to slightly bring it up, increase that color in the catch light, and that's all we're going to do with that. And as you can see, it looks really good. And then that's basically the nice adjustments that we're going to do. So let's look at a comparison. So before and after, and then I'm pretty happy with it. So we're going to go back, and we're just going to add the last final touch. And we're just going to add a little bit of vignette, so therefore your eyes can focus a little bit more. And we're going to make it a little bit more round, and we're going to feather it. There you go. And then, so therefore your eyes tend to go where it needs to, especially in a portrait shoot. So yeah, so that is basically the quick edit on a portrait. And the beauty of Lightroom is now that we have this, we can actually apply those edits that we just did to all the photos. And there is a handy synchronized window that pops up. We're going to leave the local adjustments, and we're going to do the crop, but we're going to keep everything in there, and we're going to sync it all. And as you can see, it made all those adjustments, and all those adjustments with the exception of the local adjustments that we just made. So yeah, so those have to be added manually. Unfortunately, you can't do that in the full sync mode, but you have that ability. So as you can see, that is pretty much the full edited photo that will be posted to Instagram. And from there, what we can do now then is export it out, and then we'll talk a little bit about the JPEG. So when you export it out, you usually will send it out as a JPEG file and have a few settings. So it's going to be a JPEG at a max of 3.5 megabytes, so therefore it's easy to post to Instagram. I'm going to have it resize it to about 4,000 pixels on the longest side, and then you can add watermarks, but I'm choosing not to add a watermark to this particular photo. So we're going to keep it there, and we're just going to export this out. We're going to put it into a folder called Daily Photo. It's going to export it out, and then once that's in there, actually, you know what we're going to do? We're also just going to export this back out once it's done. We're going to export it again, but we're going to export it into, we're going to navigate it to the same folder as the original folder, and we're going to do that, and it should bring it back in. And I kind of want to show you what it looks like now with a JPEG. So this was a raw file that we edited, but I want to show you what happens when you try to edit a JPEG. You may not have a lot of capabilities. What what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you a virtual copy. And what I'm going to do with this virtual copy is I'm going to reset it, and I'm going to turn it into a JPEG, just like how I just did. So I'm going to export this out to same folder as original, and export it, and we're going to make it use a unique name. Alright, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the photo that we just exported out to that folder. Let's go do that. So let's navigate to the window. Okay, so let's do that, and what we're going to do is we're going to what we're going to do now is we're going to navigate towards the desktop and add that. So let's do that desktop, put that there, and JPEG. All right, we're going to import that. Okay, so as you can see, the photo has now been imported. We're going to kind of click on that, and as you can see, the photo has now been imported. All right, so we're going to go back to that develop module. This is the original photo, and this is the edited RAW file. All right, so this is a JPEG file, and nothing has changed from the original, but as you can see now here, there is not that many options as before, because the JPEG file is what they would like to call baked in. So therefore, you don't have that flexibility to change or have those extra settings that you're looking for. Whereas like here, we had all those options with the RAW file because it kept all that information, so it was a little bit more flexible. You can still do the auto settings, and you can still adjust your white balance a little bit more to match, but it's not going to be about the same. See how it's a little bit less than what it is? I mean, you can try, but it's not really as flexible as the RAW file, and we can do that adjustment there. We can get it close to it, but it's still not going to be the best. You can also do the crop as well and do it that way. So I mean, we can get it really close, but it was a lot more easier to do it that way. So see, add a little bit of texture, and then add a little bit of sharpening to it, and it's getting there. It's not there yet, but it's close. So you still have that flexibility with it, but with a RAW file, you have you can finesse it even more. You have more options available to you. But for the most part, like if you photograph with your iPhone or your mobile phone, you're most likely going to get a JPEG file that is similar to it. So as you can see, it's not the end of the world if you don't shoot it or photograph things in RAW. It just kind of limits you a little bit on what's available. So as you can see, we can do that, and we can also just add a little bit of midpoint and do that, and voila. So yeah, so that is just a quick edit on this. I know I went really quick through all of this and didn't explain a lot, but there are definitely a lot of courses available for this editing process out there. But yeah, so what we're going to do now is we're going to shift gears, and I'm going to talk about like some points you want to think about when it comes to editing. All right, so as you can see, the photos have been fully edited, and these will be going to Instagram and all that. Well, all right, so that ends this portion of the lesson, and we're going to go back to the camera view and talk about other things related to editing. So I hope you learned a few things with this, but this is Lightroom, and we'll also try to talk a little bit about some of the editing apps that's available on your mobile phone, particularly an iPhone, because that's what I have. All right, so that's going to end this one. All right, so you just saw me show you how I edited a photo, and I want to take this time right now to discuss a little bit more about editing. So editing is a very personal thing. You do not need to edit your photos. However, by editing, you allow your photographs to speak your style. You allow your vision of the world to show through and communicate that with others. So you might want to consider editing. You don't have to. It's not the end all be all of photography, but it definitely does help set you apart from others. So I know I just showed you what to do on a laptop, but most of you might have a mobile phone like this. And what I'm going to talk about a little bit right now is I'm going to talk to you about some of the apps that you might want to use for editing on your mobile phone. So one of my favorite apps that I use, I mean, in relation, there is a mobile version of Lightroom that you can download. I believe you have to pay for it if you have an Adobe account. And this is not an endorsement whatsoever, but if you're interested in some Adobe products, they do sell a photography bundle which has Lightroom and Photoshop, which is basically, as a photographer, that's all you need in terms of your programs. You can do a vast majority of a lot of editing for that there on Lightroom and Photoshop. I barely use Photoshop. As you can see, I didn't do any Photoshop's things there. I sparingly use it, but there is a mobile version of that on the phone. So one of my other favorite apps to use is VSCO, VSCO on the phone, and what that has, it has a more nostalgic feel, but it has a great app editor in there as well. It does cost a little bit, but it's not as much there, so that works. Also, I love to use the default editing on the phone, so any default editing process that you have on the phone, that works really well for editing your photos on the fly. And the last one that I like to use is, I actually like to use the editing capabilities within Instagram. Before you post, you have that ability to edit photos within the app itself, and that's a great way to edit photos. So yeah, so that's a quick run of what things to edit on your iPhone. But again, with editing, you don't need to edit, but it definitely does help. So it does take practice. You're not going to get the edit that you like immediately. It's going to take some time, and just like your photography, it's a skill set, and you have to learn it and try it. And once you try it, it's going to become easy and apparent, and eventually you'll get to a point like myself, where your style is kind of what they would call a signature style. It's something that when someone sees it, they already know it's you without you being present. They just see your work and they know it's you. So you will eventually get there. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes, it takes countless hours, weeks, months, years to get to that point. But if you practice like you practice with your photography skills, you can get there quicker than you think. But the most important thing is you have to have fun, and at the end of the day, you have to be happy with the work that you're producing. And if you are finding yourself not too happy with the work that you're producing right now, it's okay. We all go through there, and eventually you will find a way to go through all that and make it work in your favor. So yeah, so as you can see, today we did a lot. So we did a photo shoot. I showed you some of the behind the scenes of how that happened, and then I showed you some editing on how I edited a portrait of myself, self-portrait, and we'll get through all that. So yeah, so that's gonna end today's third day lesson, and we have one more day, and tomorrow is gonna be a great day. We're gonna talk about bringing your love for photography to the next level, and that's going to be in the next lesson. So until then, enjoy and photograph. Oh, I totally forgot. So what I want you to do for your assignment now is, you may have already been editing the photos that you've been taking over the last 2 courses. So what I want you to do today is go ahead and take some photos, practice that skill set that you learned over the first 2 lessons, and practice that again. But this time I want you to kind of go have fun with edit your photos. Use whatever editing app you have or program that you have, and see what you can produce, and try to get different styles, and definitely share and tag us and let me know what it's going to be like, and we'll put that information towards the end. But yeah, so those are a few things that I want you to do today for that assignment. Is literally go take some photos and then do some editing to it and have fun with it. Play with the white balance, and You know, if you have questions, we'll figure that out and how you can ask those questions. But yeah, that is your assignment. Take photos and do some editing to them, and let's see what you produce. All right, well, that will now officially end today's lesson, and we will see you again here tomorrow.